they say that a picture paints 1,000 words. Well, you see this picture right here. You see the way AJ looks, the eye of the tiger. This is what he's going to need moving forward, not just for the Alexander Usyk rematch, but against any of the top guys. He's going to need the eye of the tiger. And this is the kind of vibe that he's been giving off over the past couple weeks. People were asking who AJ might fight if he goes ahead and has an interim bout. And names like Otto Wallin and even Joe Joyce have been bandied about. And Anthony Joshua responded because there were people saying that he wouldn't take such a risk of fighting the likes of a Joe Joyce or an Otto Wallin. And AJ responded by saying, I've shared the ring with most people you see in the heavyweight division today. I boxed Otto Wallin twice as youngsters and I boxed Joe and stopped him in 1 round. I'd do the same thing today. Ain't nothing changed. He went on to say that he respects Wilder, but Wilder wasn't ready to fight him. I'll get the quote here. He said, need I say more? Let's put this AJ Duck saga to rest. And this is in reference to a tweet that Deontay Wilder put out. I'm sure most of you guys have seen it or you're aware of it, where Wilder said he was offered more money to fight Tyson Fury than he was being offered to fight Anthony Joshua. I think that was the initial offer where I think AJ's team offered him 15 million. That was the first one. But anyway, he said, I respect Wilder. He's a good fighter. He just wasn't ready to fight me. If you don't believe me, see below. And again, he's referencing that tweet. On inactivity, he said, winning the heavyweight championship in my 16th fight was a gift and a curse. It stopped my progression as an active fighter. So, once you win a world title, generally, especially if you're a big star, you're only going to be fighting about twice a year. And that was certainly the case for Anthony Joshua. And he's saying that stopped his progression. And this is what I've been saying, that Anthony Joshua was rushed in his career and he didn't have the learning fights that Tyson Fury had and many other fighters have had. Once you are at the top level, you're only fighting twice a year. Just like AJ alluded to there, you're not really learning as much. You're obviously learning, yes, but you have to go in there and try and win by any means necessary. It's not a thing where you can go in there and start trying different things out against opponents and, seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work and testing and practicing different techniques, etc. And I know people say you should do that in sparring. Of course you do it in sparring, but you also want to be doing it in the ring, and AJ didn't really have the opportunity because he was thrown in at a deep end at a very early stage of his career. But he says here, boxing 101, hit and don't get hit. I was told if I love fighting and want to go on for years, try not to get hit a lot. And that's what he was speaking about, the rematch with Ruiz. He said, a loss or a beating shouldn't make you scared of boxing. It made me work on my weaknesses, hard to explain, but make of it what you can. Well, AJ likes being cryptic and what have you these days. And you get the impression that even he doesn't quite understand what he's saying at times. But anyway, back to the eye of the tiger thing and what he said about Joe Joyce. Yes, he did indeed stop Joe Joyce in 1 round. He did box Otto Wallin a number of times. I believe they've also sparred. There's certainly pictures of them, which you can see on the internet, in the gym together, AJ and Otto Wallin, that is. Now, as far as Joe Joyce, he responded quickly to what AJ said, and he said, let's go, my youth. Let's do it in Nigeria. Now, if you weren't aware of the backstory here, yes, Joe Joyce was stopped by AJ in 1 round many, many years ago, but subsequently they sparred countless rounds together. And clearly Joe Joyce has gained a lot of confidence from those countless rounds that they sparred together, and he now believes that he has what it takes to beat Anthony Joshua. So what do you guys think? You think Joe Joyce could beat AJ right now? In boxing they say timing is everything. Sometimes one guy is in the ascendancy, the other guy is on the decline, and they meet just at the right time for one guy who might have been inferior years ago to his opponent. He meets him at the right time and he actually beats him. Would that be the case for Joe Joyce against AJ at this point? And would you like to see the fight, and how realistic do you think it is? Now, Eddie Hearn in this interview said that AJ's #1 pick for an interim fight, remember this is a fight before he faces Usyk in a rematch. He says his #1 choice is Deontay Wilder. He did also say that the team, Joshua's team, have a different view in terms of who they think he should fight next than Joshua himself. Because if you're going into an Usyk fight, it doesn't really make any sense facing Wilder. He's not a southpaw. He doesn't fight anything like Usyk. He's not going to prepare you or help you for that fight. It's a very dangerous fight, of course. Deontay Wilder hits extremely hard, and it will be a completely different kind of affair than the Usyk fight. So, you could go in there and even if you beat Deontay Wilder, you take damage and maybe you get hurt, you're on the floor before you come back and win. I don't know how that fight would go, but I'm just putting some hypotheticals out there. I don't see how that benefits AJ against Usyk. I mean, one way that it might benefit him, just to rewind and remix what I just said for a second, and the only way I can think is in the mindset department. Because if he can go in there against somebody as ferocious as Deontay Wilder, and Wilder is ferocious, if you can go in there with someone as ferocious as that, as aggressive of that, as spirited as Deontay Wilder is, and overcome him and beat him, then he might go into the Usyk fight with more confidence. But again, from a technical point of view, it's a completely different kind of fight. So what do you guys make of it? Do you think AJ is serious about going in there with Wilder, or do you think that he's trying to convince himself? Do you think he's trying actively to get in control of his own thoughts and his own mind and his own demons and get this eye of the tiger back? The same eye of the tiger AJ who fought Dillian Whyte all those years ago. Now, a lot of people believe that AJ hasn't had the eye of the tiger for many years. A lot of people think it's since the Klitschko fight, that he hasn't been the same since then. I know many of you believe that. Well, whatever the case is, he certainly hasn't had it, from at least my perspective, for several fights now, this eye of the tiger. And I always cite the Dillian Whyte fight as an example of when he did have it, because you go back and watch the fight, he was goading Dillian Whyte from the first round, sticking his tongue out. Even after he got hurt by Whyte in the second round, AJ was still goading him immediately. He didn't have that deer in the headlights look that we've seen, for example, when he fought Andy Ruiz, or even when he fought Usyk, he had that deer in the headlights look. Didn't have that against Dillian Whyte when he got hurt. So maybe he's trying to tap back into that old mindset, and that's what that version of AJ used to look like this. But is it really there? Does AJ still have the eye of the tiger, or is he trying to convince himself that he still has it? I know there are some people, including Tyson, but people are going to say Tyson Fury would say that. But there are a few other people who think that AJ is actually finished, that he's mentally shot at this point. And my girlfriend actually thinks the same thing. She's a boxing fan as well, and she has pretty good intuition. She's got a good boxing prediction record, I tell you that. And she thinks AJ's done. Whenever she sees his interviews and his fights, she's like, "Nah, he's done. He's finished." So we will see if her female intuition is going to be right in this case. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is AJ done? And if he did fight a Deontay Wilder next, how do you see the fight going? Do you think it's more sensible to fight an Otto Wallin or let's say Joyce rather than someone like Deontay Wilder? Or do you think that it's actually an easy fight for Anthony Joshua and that he could come out looking really good against Deontay Wilder? Drop it all below.